Hello, everyone. I am Melanie Browning with Spotlight, and tonight the special guest is musician Mike King, who is also the operations director over at Ripcord Entertainment. And there he is. So it's been an exciting week. This will be my third guest from Ripcord Entertainment tonight. So I'm excited to get him on here. And there you
are. Hey, I'm on.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm ginormous. Let me back this up a little bit here.
Instagram's kind of different. It really does different things.
There's my Victorian doll collection.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, no, it's my wife's. It's not mine.
Sure.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Well, thank you for joining tonight. I'm so excited. I've been just enjoying this whole week, and I'm a huge fan of music in all shapes, and just love it. Absolutely love it. So thank you.
What kind of bands you listen to? Anything local? You go out and see stuff?
I don't like. Yeah, unfortunately I kind of am a lot of a recluse, but I do enjoy music, like just constantly. I have earbuds in listening to, and it's kind of, that's how I get out of anything. I'll just dance around crazily in my kitchen or down here in the basement and just stuff like that. So, and that goes back from my mom was just huge music fan. So yeah. Where did your music journey begin?
Well, it was fifth grade. So I had this, in fifth grade, we had this violin teacher come in. His name is Julius Sanger. And he came into our fifth grade class, and he played a little bit, which was like, oh, that's nice. He played as a violin, and he played a little bit, and it's like, oh, that's nice. And then he started doing sound effects. Like he would do airplanes flying by with machine guns and with the violin. I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. I love this. So I started taking lessons with him, and I picked it up really, really quick. So they would pull me out of class to go do lessons with him in elementary school. And then just kind of continued on there. I got into high school. To my senior year of high school, I switched over to viola, which is kind of, if you're not, the joke is if you're not good enough to play violin, you go to viola. The other joke is if you're not good enough to play guitar, you switch to bass. So anyway, I switched over to viola and studied at ASU. And I got my degree in performance, and I just wasn't quite, it's a couple things. I wasn't really good enough to get an orchestra gig. Because there's so many musicians, and you know, you go to an audition, and like the first round is 300 people trying to get this one chair in a symphony, and I wasn't at that level. So, and plus I started to get tired of playing classical music, and I always loved rock, and so I picked up an electric bass and just started messing around with that, and then things just kind of evolved from that point. And I had a really good teacher who's since passed away. His name is Joel DeBartolo. And he was the bass player for the Tonight Show band with Johnny Carson. Are you too young to know who Johnny Carson is?
Come on now. No, I know who Johnny Carson is.
When I teach, I put these references out. These kids are like, I don't know what you're talking about, old man King. Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
Okay, good. So anyway, Joel was a great guy, incredibly informative. He just had just a great concept and just a real sweet person. And the funny thing about Mr. Sanger, my first violin teacher, I always thought he was like a classical genius, and it turns out he wasn't. He would do the gigs that I ended up doing, which is he would do strolling gigs. You go around and play for bar mitzvahs and weddings and like walk around. So, which I didn't realize. He passed years and years ago, but he was a great guy. So that's my story. Now here I am.
That's pretty cool. So was there a point like where you started playing, you fell in love with it, and once you found the bass, was it just always a forward path of this is what I want to do, or is it like, were you doing it on the side? How did that look for you? Like, how did it develop into a career?
Well, it takes a lot of time. It's like that Malcolm Gladwell thing. It takes 10,000 hours to get competent in something, and it was a long path. You know, I started off playing a lot of bar band gigs and doing different types of styles. Meantime, I was working for my mom, who was an accountant. She has a big accounting firm, and she ended up firing me. Another story. Then I worked as a mortgage broker with my father, and then I started getting busy playing. So it took some time. It was about a good 10-year span before I could actually make a living playing music.
Awesome. Was there ever a time where you thought maybe I shouldn't move forward, or were you just always focused on
No,
just eventually?
no, and no, not really. I did really. There wasn't anything else I was ever thought to do. I mean, I always wanted to be a musician. That
That's
was
awesome.
the thing. So
Super cool. Awesome. Um, Now, you mentioned also in your bio that you teach at the community college. Is that correct?
I do, yeah. So I teach at Mesa Community College in the jazz program. Get rid of this. I thought I had this on sleep. I teach in the jazz program there, and that was started about 12 years ago. And it's just something I kind of fell into. The director of jazz at the time was this lady named Barb Catlin, who's an incredible piano player, since moved to Los Angeles. And she always called me Mikey. She's like, Mikey, it's time for you to pay back. You know, you need to pay it back. I was like, okay. So I started teaching, and it just turned out to be something I love doing. It's been a challenge, you know, because of COVID. But it's starting to get back to normal, which is nice. And I love interacting with the kids. You know, not all of them are going to go on to be, it's not a university, but they're not all going to go on to be professional musicians. But, like, you know, there's great kids for the most part. There's a couple of them I'm just kidding. So, yeah, I've been there. I teach some jazz combos. Pre-COVID, I was working, doing the big band with our jazz director of jazz studies, Paul Brewer. And then I was also teaching a history of American music class.
Oh, wow. Well, I wanted to kind of dive in as far as from the teaching perspective. Like, first of all, like someone starting off just getting into music, are there any like key, like the fundamentals that you would give advice to someone
Yes,
starting
yeah,
off?
definitely. The first thing I would say is that, and I think it really helped me in my switch from classical music and violin to popular music and jazz and, you know, all the other stuff I play, is learn how to read music. It's a different language. It's not as hard as learning how to speak French or Spanish or Italian or anything like that, but it is a different language. And what it does is when you learn how to read music, you have access to so much more information like this. A lot of people learn by rote, which is you listen to an album, you play along, you make mistakes, but eventually you get it, which is, it's a good skill to have ear training. And that's really an understatement. You have to have ear training, but being able to read music opens up a whole different world. And so it's like a concept that would take you a month to understand. If you have the written notes down, you can get it down in a week. Because go ahead. I'm sorry.
What's the best place to get into that? Like, because there's so much access to information, what would you say that is the best place to start off with?
Well, I mean, obviously, just study music with somebody, or even in school. You know, I have three kids. Two of them are study music. One of my sons was in the Phoenix Boys Choir, so he can read music, and they make it fun. You can make it fun. When I was growing up back in the '70s, it was tedious. You know, it was like every good boy does fine. You had to memorize that, and all cows eat grass, and there's all these mnemonics to remember what the notes are. But they make it fun now, which is great. And it's like, once you get that, you're never going to forget it. You know, it's like riding a bike, basically. You just exercise it every now and then. And then, yeah, so school's a really good way to do that. Taking lessons is really good too. But, you know, and again, it's, you were talking about listening to music as kind of like your release and the joy that it brings to you. As, you know, as a professional musician, I honestly, at this point, it's very rare that I'll listen to music for enjoyment, which kind of stinks, you know. But you know, it's like a good majority of my time is spent learning new music and new tunes, and it's kind of have to take a step back about it away. You know, if you're I don't know what the correlation would be if you're an actor, but
I don't watch movies much. It's kind of
kind of weird. I wouldn't kill myself if I couldn't watch movies.
I'm listening to music. You're watching movies. That works out great.
That's funny because my wife is like really into music, and she knows all the modern stuff. And I about a year ago, I got a message from one of the bands I play with. It's like, hey, you know, we got this wedding. We got this tune by Lizzo called Juice, and I'm like, this is like a foreign language. Lizzo by Juice. And then I listened to it. It's like, hey, this is hip, man. I'm digging this. So it's kind of accidentally get into it, but you can only listen to Juice so many times, I guess. Or maybe you can't. I don't know.
In your years of teaching, what do you think stops a good musician from becoming a great one if they have the capabilities?
Well, I'll give you an example without naming names. I have a student who doesn't attend anymore, like one of the more talented musicians that I've ever been able to, have pleasure to teach. But this person was so in their head about it. It's like, oh no, this sucks. I mean, this person had so much natural talent, like his hands were. I keep saying his. I was trying to keep this non-gender specific. But he had all this talent, and he still does. But he would get in his head. He had no self-confidence. He had, there was other issues going on, and I think that that kind of affects all of us. I mean, myself included. I mean, I constantly doubt where I'm at. I mean, and there's so many good musicians in town and bass players in town that are way above me, and so I think it's just like getting inside your own head and not having confidence isn't the right word, but belief in yourself to be able to pull something off. And a lot of it too is that it's hard work. I think inherently musicians, and this might be a stereotype, but I think inherently we're kind of lazy. So
I think we're all like programmed to be lazy in some way. I mean, it's just part of
maybe like in the
conserving
arts. Yeah, maybe that's just the way it is. It's funny. I had a dream. It was more of a nightmare the other night that I was working with my wife, and she was my boss, and she's program manager at this big company. And I was working, and I realized, oh my God, I have to be here for 8 hours, possibly 9 hours. And I was like, I woke up in a sweat. It's like, I can't do this. This is not me.
Yeah, it's once you make that, like, for me, making that transition was huge, but it's like, oh.
So what did you do before
I've done a few things. Recently, production line manager. Just a production, just working, hands-on type stuff. So going from that, we worked 12-hour shifts. It was wonderful. Like, I loved being around people and I loved working with people, but yeah, no. I'd much rather set my own schedule. That's for sure.
It's a different thing. We did a live stream thing last night. Could I plug somebody else on? I mean, I don't think
please do.
His name's Otto. Well, the program's called The Recording Artist. I think you can go to recordingartist.com. And basically what he does is he brings a band in. In this case, it was the Sugar Thieves, which is this Americana blues band I play with. We're fantastic. SugarThieves.com. There it is. This is my shameless plug. Great band, great musicians, great guys, and gal. So anyway, he brings musicians into a studio. And Otto owned this huge studio for years and years called Chaton, which I think is Spanish for cat, possibly. I'm not sure. I mean, that's Gato. I don't know what Chaton means. So anyway, he brings it in. It's like a 5-camera shoot. It's live, and it was just so much fun. Like, he's documenting sort of the creative process. So he brings everybody in, and we pick a song we're going to do, and then we play 1 time through, 2 times through, and then he gives suggestions. We all kind of collaborate on this, and then we have this finished product. And it was just like that whole process. I really, really dig that. And plus, I'm hanging out with like all my best friends, so that's
so cool.
That's a very cool thing. Yeah.
That's fun times. Now switching over, kind of getting more back into the live performances and booking for Ripcord Entertainment. What exactly do you do? You're the operations director. What is that? What is your function there?
Well, it's a lot of different things. Like, first of all, I'm kind of responsible for contacting musicians, putting together promo material for the different venues that we book. So we book like 3 or 4 different places right now, and all of them have different requirements as far as what they like to see before they book an act. And when they decide on that, Kregg, my partner, the owner, he deals with the sort of the pricing and the sales part of it, because I'm no good at that. And I just sort of do all the logistics of getting people and say, hey, this is the time you got to be there. This is the bread. The money that you're going to make. I went into jazz parlance there. Sorry. And just making sure everybody shows up on time and finding different things. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. So at the Weekapaw Casino, one of the first things they'd asked us for is like, we want an Elvis tribute. It's like, oh, that's easy.
Nice.
You just get, fat guy in a jumpsuit, right? But turns out the F&B guy says, no, we want an Elvis tribute, but we want a young Elvis tribute. So I had to go on this long search, and I ended up calling a friend of mine who's a very talented singer in Tucson. I said, hey, do you have like a line on this? And he says, yeah, this guy in Vegas does a tribute, what's a tribute show things there? Legends. He does like a young Elvis, like, the hound dog and that kind of stuff, and, the gold lame jacket and all that stuff. So, I ended up getting him, and then I put the band together. I ended up playing that show, and it was fantastic. Because that kind of stuff, it's really satisfying to do that. And fun. I mean, it's, because you get the part where you get to put it together, and then you get to play, which is even better. So, yeah. So, and then I do that, and I do the financial portion of it too, since my mom was an accountant, my dad was a vice president of a bank, so I've got just a little bit of those chops to be able to, sort of keep track of money.
That's awesome.
But not enough, because I make a ton of mistakes. So
that's how you learn best, right? I was wondering, like, with this whole transition period with COVID and everything, and the shutdowns and the openings kind of sort of, have you noticed like a transition in mindset with performers and with audiences? And are you able to be a little bit more picky with who you bring on, or is it the opposite? Do you think like everyone's more appreciative and kind of, I guess, being more on their best behavior, or is it just kind of?
Well, as far as the audience, let's address the audience thing. The audience is because of COVID. I mean, right now, I know Arizona, because we're brilliant, everything's open, wide open. Woo! But
I might need to go for a drive.
But one of our clients is a casino, and they have a different set of rules, which I think is fantastic. They're down to half capacity. So that affects not only the size of the audience, obviously, like one of the rooms we book is 300 people. We're down to 150 people. So that affects, like, as far as feedback from the crowd for the acts. It also affects the amount of money that's coming in and how much money we can actually budget out for the bands that we bring in. So that's that side of it. As far as musicians, I can only talk from my circle and myself. Is that when I did my first gig pre-COVID, it was with the Sugar Thieves. It just felt fantastic to just be able to play again. And in the circle of musicians that I'm with, they're, I would say without exception, we're all very, very happy to play. And prior to COVID, I probably would consider myself pretty jaded, because I've been doing this for 30 some odd years now. Like not appreciating the amount of work that we have, and the fact that I get to do what I love, essentially. And so that's been a bit of a realization for me. And I know it has been for a lot of friends of mine that I play with, is that it's like, man, we really have it good doing something we love, getting paid for it. And it's not working for my wife at her project management company. It's and I'm not disparaging her, because I know she's listening right now. Hi, hon. I was trying to see if I can hear her laugh. No, she's not laughing.
Uh-oh.
But it's like, I think you can tend to get jaded. And Phoenix, surprisingly, is a very good town to be a musician. As long as you're diversified. I mean, you can't just be, I'm just a jazz musician, or I'm just a country guy, or I'm just a rock guy. You have to kind of encompass all of that. And that gets back to the rigging thing. It's like, if you can read music, it makes life so much easier. And you're able to get all these different genres and be able to pull it off. And I think people are realizing too. I mean, I was talking to a drummer friend of mine who's from LA. He lives here, has been living here for a long time. And he's saying a lot of his friends from Los Angeles are moving out here because it's a slower pace, obviously, than LA. And they're realizing that, there's enough work out here. it's not as competitive as LA because you got all the best players in the world living there. It's like New York on the West Coast, but anyway, I don't even remember what the question was. I'm sorry.
I love the journey, so it works out. Just the shift in the mindset, and you really did answer it with you sharing how much more appreciative you are, and how that kind of brought that out.
Very much so.
So, and I was just kind of wondering, like, I know from like my perspective, I would love to go in there, even though if it's not jam packed and you're getting the energy that way. I would just love to be in the live presence of musicians playing. So normally you'd like to go in that big environment, that big energy, but just to be able to go live and just to connect again it would shift for me as well. So
and maybe that's an unexpected benefit of our pandemic is that maybe people realize like, this is something pretty special, to be able to go out and see whether it's theater. Because I mean, I've done Broadway shows. I haven't done them in a long time, but theater or live performances of music is like, I think maybe even everybody kind of took it for granted, So this might be a nice benefit of 536,000 people dying.
Yeah, intense. So with that, what are there any specific kind of performers that you're looking for specifically right now that maybe we can contact?
It's a wide variety. We had one of our clients contact us and say they've got a middle of the day gig for 4 hours for a high energy duo. So we're looking for a high energy duo. And it's funny because it's the people that we deal with on the client side, they're not musicians per se. So it's kind of on us, and Kregg does a very good job of this, of sussing out sort of what they mean when they say high energy duo. And I think in this case it was, they want lively contemporary music, no ballads, probably stay away from the Billie Eilish thing, and go more Bruno Marsy or something like that. Marsy.
Nice. Marsy.
So, but yeah,
I know what you mean there.
Yeah, but it's interesting just like some of the stuff that comes across. It's like, oh, we can find this, okay, and I guess that's part of the challenge that Kregg and I both have, is trying to not anticipate, but sort of get in the minds of whoever we're booking for, and saying, okay, this is what they mean by that. Because as a non-musician, I'm guessing it's hard to articulate what it is exactly that you want.
It's hard. Like, I was intimidated bringing you guys on because I really I listened to a ton of it, but I really know nothing about the business. So I was very intimidated, but you guys are so wonderful and have great stories. So I
know nothing about the business either. I'm just a simple caveman bass player.
That's awesome. I was digging some of your videos that your wife has on her site with you playing. So it's totally awesome. So
what?
Yeah.
I never go on this. So.
Oh, never mind. Now I'm in trouble.
Geez.
Right? You're an awesome player. So thank you for being here. Is there anything else any other shameless plugs that you want to give while I have you on here?
Maybe not. I think if I could say this, it's I've known Kregg for since the 90s. And when he and I, he's had his business going on forever, and when he brought me on with this, it's really been a learning experience for me, just seeing it from this side, because it's always been just me booking myself and dealing with business in that respect. But the other thing I found really interesting, especially because of the COVID, is that being able to find business. And there's not a lot of people working right now, which is horrible. It's getting better, but a lot of my friends, musician friends, have had a really rough go of it. And so it's nice to be able to offer them some type of work. And I think our, I don't know if ethos is the right word, but we're trying to do everything right. And because Kregg and I are both professional musicians, we've been screwed over, honestly, by agents and booking agents and band leaders and all this stuff where they take so much money, and we're left with scraps, and we're trying to do the right thing, and still make money, but pay everybody a good wage for what is if you go out and do a 4-hour job, it's going to pay this, which is commensurate with what everybody else should pay in town. Like we're not going to pay somebody $125 to go out and play a 4-hour job or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think probably that stems from our being musicians and being taken advantage of. Because, honestly, Kregg's an exception, but I'm not a businessman. So, I mean, I've done so many $100 jobs. And it's nice to be able to treat people like I would want to be treated. Fellow musicians, and not take advantage of them. So
that's and I can see that with the vast experience that the three of you that have been on here and the rest of your team, just you have all of that experience to combine together, and listening to Kregg talk about the ecosystem and really how the encompassing view of everything and really understanding how everyone needs to be taken care of, it really comes through these 3 interviews. So I can feel that, and I'm sure everyone watching can definitely feel.
Yeah, and to say a nice thing about Kregg, I mean, Kregg is he's a hidden gem. He's an amazingly talented. You say soundman, it's like, okay, he's just like a slider monkey. He's moving sliders on board. It's so much more than that, and we're really lucky to have him on board as well, because this vast knowledge. I'm a guy, if my car runs out of gas, I sell it. So he's got this skill set.
I'm right there with you.
He knows about all this stuff. I mean, it's like we had this light board at one of our venues. It's like a $50,000 light board, and he went to a 2-hour training, and Kregg did as well. And he's like got this thing down. It's like it's amazing. I'm looking at this going like, it's like the Enterprise going to take off, or Elon Musk is involved in this, but it's really it's good to have good people involved, and that's that might be the best part about this whole thing.
Yeah, I think you guys make a beautiful team. Absolutely wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you for taking care of all the musicians and the other performers, and taking care of the audiences as well. So
I would try. I think things are finally opening up. My fall and a lot of my friends, our falls are starting to fill in, so that's good.
Nice. That's nice. I'm super excited.
Yeah,
well, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it, and I will throw all the links in the all your websites and stuff in the chat. So
that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.